Hello, 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 everyone. Mike Arnold here, co-founder, Pat Trading Partners, along with Bob Iacchino for your weekly stock sector overview. Should be nowhere to hide. By the way, if you are new here, please do consider subscribing, hitting the like button, and leaving some comments. That's out of the way. Let's get right down to it. Just from the overall broad market perspective, everything S&P, NASDAQ, Dow, Russell, all in still the mid to long-term sells. Yes, we still do have a potential short-term buy in things like the S&P, which I'll cover on the live streams. That would just be from a short-term bounce. We also have the sort of the market internals and everything set up for a potential capitulation move. I'll cover that on the live streams, and that if we did get a capitulation move, especially going into October, would be more of a medium term bounce. If those happen, then it's going to be very short term information for generating any buy signals. Now, a capitulation move would lead to more of a medium term bounce, so we could see signals going into possibly the year end. And since most of these sectors, if we start going through it, are in sell mode, we have to pick the best sectors and then any stocks that are triggering buy patterns in those sectors, which is hard to do in a weekly sector overview because we don't have a bottom triggered yet and we don't have a capitulation or a capitulation move triggered yet. For example, we have XLE is still in buy mode. XLE is still in buy mode. You're wondering whether I don't even know where that arrow went. I'll have to put a new arrow on there. It is still in buy mode. It's been in buy mode for quite some. I'll just put it somewhere on here just so we have the arrow. It's way back buy mode over here, but we are in buy mode. So that's where we sit with XLE. We are still in buy mode. This we never triggered to sell mode, so we can still look. Also keep in mind OPEC, rumblings of OPEC cuts. And, this is not tipped into sell mode, so we could easily still see some rallies in energy stocks. It's not, and energy stocks can have nothing to do with crude, but I am watching it because a lot of energy stocks are tied to crude, so I'm still watching stuff like that. So especially if we do get a rally on crude, or if there's energy stocks in good positions for either continuation buy patterns, any bottoming patterns, then those are things that are to be considered. XLRE, real estate, as you can see here, sell mode. Since it went to sell mode, we've had multiple down weeks. We've hit the harmonics. We're closing in on some longer term buy level, some major longer term buy levels, but there's nothing to do. We are in pretty significant momentum downwards, and this is below the June lows. Now, there's lots of sectors that are below the June lows. Those are going to be the last ones I'm focusing on. So if we get a bounce, and especially if it's just a short-term bounce, then those aren't what, like, let's say we trigger that double bottom or some percent beat buy pattern in the S&P or NASDAQ. This is one of the last things I'm looking at. Any sector that broke below its June or July lows. Why? Because any rallies, just from a sector perspective, could just rally back to the prior support, becoming resistance, and roll over again. Now, if we have a capitulation low, that could be for a 2 to 3 month low pattern. It's a little different, but real estate's not the first thing I'm turning to. Okay, there'll be other sectors to watch for if it is even a stronger bottoming pattern that I go to first before I started looking really at real estate. Interest rates for mortgages are, mortgage rates are above 7%. Yeah, we're going to have rebuilding going on in Florida because of the hurricane in South Carolina and everything else. But you know what? That's not just a reason to rush out and buy housing. And I'm, again, very sorry for all that destruction in Florida. But, that's not just a reason to go buy real estate. So, XLF, financial sector, holding up better. All right. The lows back from June were 30.26. The lows 30.12. So it did make a new low. So that's where you flip your harmonics around. And we have a new closing low. Now, the only thing I will watch for is if we get some bottoming, as long as financials hold roughly on this breakout area, 29.95 on a weekly closing basis, I can start to look at that if we get a bottoming pattern. Otherwise, no. And if we start breaking with momentum below this level, well, not only, hold on, levels moved again. Levels moved again on Wonderful Trading View. I hope that gets fixed. But we have to go to the lows in the June, and the next major area we'll be watching now, we have forward harmonics and retracement harmonics would be 28.80. Now, if we really sell off, unless it's a capitulation move, I won't be looking strong at financials. Why? Because key support will turn into resistance if we come down here. However, if we get another short-term bottoming move and it holds up, then I can still look at financials in the short term. It is still in medium to long-term sell mode, so anything in that would just be a bounce, and I need a strong pattern on a daily basis or a 4-hour basis to consider the stock. You have technology broken below the June lows, stopping at the next harmonic. 118.14 was that harmonic, the low coming in at 118.56, so just in front of that level. You're also trading against some pretty key breakout resistance. It's now below that. Actually, it's below that. So unless we get a capitulation bottom and get back above these key lows from June, not interested in this. If we just get a regular bottom, then it has to get above this 122 level and hold before I'm interested in looking for anything short-term technology. Now, the capitulation bottom, I will, if we get a capitulation bottom, which could last through year end, I will go through some of the stronger individual technology stocks to look for bottoming patterns. Because everything, energy was in buy mode, but pretty much across the board, most other stuff is in sell mode. XLI, same story. Below this double bottom June, July lows. So that's now resistance. This one's holding up better. So same thing. I'm not going to keep repeating myself. But this one's below the low, so it has to get above there before I'm interested, especially if we get a capitulation move. The next minor is 81.71, next major 79.53, and that's closing in on a pretty significant support zone, a prior breakout, and gap fill. So I will actually start looking more aggressively if we do get a bottoming position, even though it's going to be below the June lows. If we do take out this gap fill and then hold that level, I can look for any industrial stocks for a bounce play, especially with the capitulation bottom. Consumer discretionary holding up, one of the better sectors, even if it's in sell mode. Now, probability wise, we still favor a return to 137.70. So if we tank down here, hold these June lows, and get a strong bottoming pattern, I will look for consumer discretionary plays and for a short-term bounce, not for a long-term position. But that's holding well above the June lows. Yes, it should probability-wise go lower. But now, if it goes lower and breaks these June lows, no more. No. XLP. Consumer staples, which funny enough should technically be holding up, but there's so many overvalued things in consumer staples, it's absurd. So, again, with this move, not really interested unless we get some bottoming pattern, and it has to get above the key resistance level. Especially we're closing in on the key support right down here. If this, even though we're below June lows, if this support holds and we get a strong bottoming or capitulation move, I'll continue to look for staples. If not, if this level does not hold, then the only way I'll look for this, and I will look for consumer staples, especially with better PE ratios. The next area is not till 64.84, and that's down on the list because it's broken the June lows. XLV healthcare still above the lows here from June. So this, even though it's in long-term sell, we'll still consider healthcare, especially after it tags 119.80. Why 119.80? Because probabilities favor a return to test the June low area. So I will, as long as this June lows hold up, still consider on, if we get some market strength or a bottoming pattern, still looking at some healthcare plays, as long as they have a setup on a daily or 4-hour time frame. XLB below, significantly below June lows. This one would have to have a lot of heavy lifting to go into, so not really interested unless it gets above about 71.60, which is a substantial rally back. So that's very low on my list to look for any plays in. Very low. XLC communications, which is in sell mode forever, continues in sell mode. Not interested. I'm just going to take off the prior buy, which was forever ago. But this has been in sell mode since January. Continues to sell off, hitting a next harmonic into a clear path move. There's just nothing. There's nothing. I'm not interested in communications at all. That's bottom of the list. XL, even I don't care if it bounces, it's still bottom of the list. XLU, remember we had the double play and then it just tanked. XLU is in sell mode. Can still, it just shifted to sell mode. Many times we get a little retracement play in this. So if there's anything really strong on a daily or 4-hour, if we get a bottoming move in the market, we'll consider it. But other than that, I got to be picky in XLU now with that sell signal. XRT, we have retail below the June lows. Holding up decently. So if we do get, especially a capitulation, a bottom going into the holiday season, up, and this would be, I'd be going into the holiday season if we got capitulation move, and it would be early in the holiday season, but because once the sort of the Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales figures start trickling out, you could see a rollover again in retail. But if we got a capitulation bottom, I will look at retail once it starts getting above about 57.75 again. And why do you say, well, all these are long-term sells? Why are you possibly looking for some bottoms? Because if we do get a bottoming play going into October with a strong bottoming signal, we're going to have to look in some areas, since pretty much across the board, most sectors are in sells. So we have to then figure out what sectors to look for within those. Transportation, well below June lows. Well below the prior break support level. We'll only start to look at this. The next support level here. Prior resistance back in February of 20, retested with support of October, November of 20, and we have a harmonic. That was this green line I just covered up. You see right here. If we start getting down there, I will watch for potential plays. Why? Because even though it's below June lows, we're closing in on some major support, and we could get, and that's only, again, with a bottoming pattern or a capitulation move, especially with a capitulation move. I will look, but the individual stocks have to have a strong bottoming pattern also. Otherwise, forget about it. Forget about it. SMH, interesting enough. This is a very interesting position. Remember, we have a long-term sell pattern. I kept getting before back in July. The lows are in. Nope. Still long-term sell. Never went to buy. We could finish off this long-term sell 179.24. So even though it's below June lows, if we get to here and hold the 62.5, I could watch for some strong semiconductor bounce plays on the stronger semis, like I've already talked about Intel, because of where it sits with its fundamentals. But it's slim pickings. Now we get a close below 62.5. Nah, not touching it. Why? We favor a bigger pullback, and this would be for a bounce play only in semis. I'm still, even after it completes this long-term pattern, still not bearish. And if we get that, I mean, still not very long-term bullish. We still have long-term sell. And closing below that 62.5, especially on that weekly level, you could easily see longer-term return to 123. So if that's at the bottom of my list, besides a couple potential plays in there. Commodities, still, this is why I love this long-term thing. You'd see, because people say, you're just trading a moving average. No, this is not a long-term sell. Not a long-term sell. You need a couple things to change before. Now, am I super rushing into commodities? No. But if we do get a rally in commodities I will still keep an eye out, because we are still in long-term buy, which has been in long-term buy since August of 20. This has not tipped yet. What would change that? If we got a daily close below the 62.5, then it's off the table until we move back up, and especially a weekly close below the 62.5, that would definitely not only violate our 62.5 rule, which I'd start watching back to 2064 on DBC, but it would also then probably trigger it into sell mode on the medium to long-term system. Until there, I can still look at some commodity plays. DBA, still in buy mode, same stuff. I'm just not really bullish on anything agricultural, commodity related, till you get at least a daily close back above 2075. Gold, we're getting some interesting stuff in here, but until I start seeing, and this would be a counter trend play, until I start getting a close above 25.65, not interested. And that would just be for short-term bounces, so it's still off the table. And it's got a lot of lifting. That would just be for short-term swing plays. Value, Vanguard value, below June. You're a long way off. Remember, value isn't necessarily value now. Unless it's got above with a capitulation play, unless we start getting above about 126 again, not interested. Above 126 with a capitulation play, then I'll be looking for more value-oriented value plays going into the end of the year. Until that happens, not touching it. Growth, which is interesting, look at growth. Yes, a new close, but the lows still held. A new close below the June closing area, but the lows still held. Still in sell. If we did get a capitulation move, because the next major long-term resistance, and money is still, we got too many people still looking for the bottoms in, the market's bottoms in, and it will be the long-term bottom, they assume. There could be a rush into some growth plays if we got a capitulation move. I will look for growth stocks then. Now, if we really tank before then, the next major area I need is around this 200 area, 199.80, 200 area, before I'll get interested once we break those June lows, if we do. Those are my overall thoughts. Pretty much everything's in sell mode except for commodities, agriculture, and energy. Everything else is in sell mode, which can happen before we get to a potential short to medium term bottom. If we don't get a trigger for a short to medium term bottom, things stay in sell, and it's hands off besides managing short plays. That's where we stand. I will chat with everyone during the live streams. Bye for now.